Let's take a look at how to name covalent compounds now. Note that all of these compounds are made from nonmetals. I don't have any metals here, and therefore they're covalent compounds. For these compounds, we have slightly different rules. We have to use the prefixes, and the prefixes are only used for covalent compounds. I have seen students that will mix the two together. They will write the name of a metal for the anionic compound, and then they'll put the parentheses, the charge, and then they'll add the prefixes for the nonmetal. That is not how we do it. There's very distinct rules for writing ionic formulas and covalent, so naming the compounds. For the covalent compounds, we only use prefixes. For the first element, if the subscript here is 1, we do not use the mono for the first element. We do for the second, but not for the first. So let's take a look at this one. I have carbon and I have sulfur. Carbon has a subscript of 1. Therefore, I don't write monocarbon. I just write carbon. So I write the name of the element, which is carbon, and then I write the prefix for the sulfur is 2, which is di. So I write di for 2. And then the second element is written just like we would write it for the anion, for the ionic compound. Sulfide instead of sulfur, disulfur. We cut off the and then we put the IDE ending. So disulfide. That is the name. So we write the name of the first element, and then the second element gets the IDE ending, and then whatever prefix corresponding to the subscript. So the di in this case, because it's 2. Now let's look at the next one. Sulfur, once again, it has a subscript of 1, so I do not write mono sulfur for the first element only. So I write sulfur. And then the di, once again, oxide, because it is oxygen. So dioxide for the oxygen. Therefore, this is the name for sulfur, for SO2, sulfur dioxide, meaning 2 oxygens, dioxide. Let's look at this one. Okay, both of these have 1 atom, so 1 carbon and 1 oxygen. We do not write it the mono prefix. We don't write it for the first atom, but we do for the second. So it will be carbon, once again, carbon, and then we'll write mono for the oxide, but because we don't write the 2 O's together, we will drop one of the O's. So we write monoxide. Carbon monoxide. Now, if this started with a different oxide, basically starts with an O, but if the second atom started with a different letter, sulfide, for example, we would keep the O and the S. So monosulfide, monochloride, but because it's both of them, oxide starts with an O and mono ends with an O, we drop 1 O. Let's look at this one. For this one, the first element has to have a prefix now because it has a 2 for a subscript, not a 1. So we write di, which is a subscript for 2, di, and then nitrogen, dinitrogen. Oxide, monoxide, I'm sorry. This is a 1, so it will be monoxide, just like it was here. So dinitrogen monoxide. 2 nitrogens, 1 oxygen. That's what that's telling me. And then the last one, sulfur has only 1, but we don't write the mono for the first atom, so we write sulfur. And then the prefix for 6 is hexa, so it will be sulfur hexa fluoride. Okay, this tells me that I have a sulfur and I have 6 fluorines bonded together. This concludes the section on naming compounds. The next video that we're going to do is going to deal with how to draw Lewis dot structures.